with the highly anticipated UFC 300 lineup out, main event showdown between Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill. While Pereira's prowess in the octagon is well documented, there are many fascinating facets of his life and journey that remain lesser known to the public. As the excitement builds for this epic clash, let's delve into 10 intriguing facts about the Brazilian powerhouse that you might not have known. Number 10. His upbringing. While UFC fans know him as Alex Pereira, this fighter has a different name in Brazil. His full name is Alexandre Pereira, and his nickname is Poético, which means stone hands in English. This tough nickname matches the tattoos on his hands. But Pereira's ring name is more than just a cool nickname. It connects to his indigenous Tupi roots from a remote northeastern part of Brazil, far away from areas influenced by colonization. His ancestors were from one of the most isolated places on Earth, the vast Amazon rainforest. In 1987, after his father journeyed from that remote northeastern regions to the slums of Sao Paulo, Pereira was born into a reality nothing like his ancestors experienced. He went from the literal jungle to the city slums, where surviving day to day was a battle. As Pereira told MMA Fighting's Glimmer Cruise, "I was raised in a slum. I had no high expectations. Owning a motorcycle seemed like a dream, not to mention a car or a house. Those were too far from reality for me." Number 9. Dropped out of school. For most kids, dropping out of school is something that happens during the tumultuous teenage years, or at the very least on the cusp of adulthood. But for Pereira, the premature end of his education came at an unimaginably young age. He was just 12 years old when he made the shocking decision to abandon the classroom. In impoverished communities, a child being forced to prioritize work over learning is often a harsh reality driven by desperate circumstances beyond their control. But Pereira's motivations were disarmingly simple for someone so young. He merely didn't feel like going to school anymore. In the unforgiving environment he called home, the tender age of 12 wasn't viewed as too young to enter the relentless grind of the workforce. So, while his peers were still memorizing timetables and learning the basics, Pereira abruptly traded textbooks for the cracked, calloused hands of a laborer. He took a job at a tire shop that doubled as an auto repair garage, and suddenly this mere child found himself submerged in a world of grease, grime, and back-breaking grown-up toil. As the Glory Kickboxing websites recount, the boy who should have been playing make-believe was instead clocking grueling 12-hour shifts, emerging from the shop each night with his youthful features obscured by layers of oil and grit. While most children view adulthood through rose-tinted lenses, eagerly awaiting all its perceived freedoms, Pereira's craving for that world was granted, and with startling haste and severity. In his own candid words to Yahoo Sports, those formative years were a difficult, horrible time. Number 8. Became an alcohol addict at an early age. Being thrust into the adult world of manual labor at just 12 years old meant Pereira was also exposed to his vices far too soon. Not long after starting at the tire shop, he dove head first into the drink of choice for his older co-workers, cachaça, a potent Brazilian rum. What began as likely an attempt to fit in and emulate the grown-ups around him quickly spiraled into a near-decade-long battle with alcoholism. The descent started at the tender age of 13, extending into his early 20s. By 16, Pereira was already consuming over a liter of cachaça daily, coupled with several beers. In his own words to MMA Fighting's Glimmer Cruise, it was an addiction. In that moment, drinking, we'd say, "I'll stop when I want to." I had that in my mind. When I decided to stop, it was time to stop. But I couldn't. That's when I realized it was ugly. The irony was biting. Even as his mother lauded him as the family's pride, Pereira knew he was letting her down in the grips of his alcoholism. As one can imagine, being perpetually intoxicated from such a young age inevitably led to conflicts. But in this chaos, a skill was forged. Pereira discovered he had a preternatural talent for fighting. With humor, he recounted to Yahoo Sports, "In Brazil, the two big sports are soccer and fighting. I didn't really like soccer, so I started to fight. I was so fortunate that I made that choice. They say sports save lives, and I'm proof of it. It was the low point of my life, and I'd hit the bottom of the well." That old adage about fighting never solving problems didn't seem to apply. Number 7. Started kickboxing to avoid alcoholism. At the lowest point, mired in grips of alcoholism that had enslaved him since childhood, for his salvation. Having heard how disciplined sports could transform lives, Pereira walked into a gym for the first time in 2009 with the singular purpose of learning kickboxing to get clean. Nothing. He just wanted to break free from alcohol's grip. Around this time, at just 21 years old, Pereira's trainers bestowed him with the fitting nickname Poiton, or Hands of Stone, as his knockout power was already apparent. But, as anyone who had battled addiction knows, kicking a lifelong habit is never easy. For 4 long years after entering kickboxing, Pereira continued to struggle, going sober for a month or 2 at a time before inevitably relapsing. But on his 4th attempt, something shifted. His obsession with becoming the best took over. He knew that to succeed at the highest levels, he had to treat his body like the temple it deserved to be. Astonishingly, even after reaching this epiphany, Pereira had already tasted championship glory. Winning a title under the WGP kickboxing banner in the 85kg weight class, essentially the same as middleweight in MMA. Perhaps it was his first loss around that time to Jason Wilness that truly drove home the wake-up call. Number 6. The first person to knock out Israel Adesanya. While many fans associate Pereira and Adesanya's rivalry with the UFC, their paths crossed years earlier in the kickboxing world, specifically the Glory of Heroes promotion in China. Pereira was going through a rough patch in Glory itself, winning just 3 of his last 5 fights when he first faced the streaking Adesanya about 2 years after his Glory debut. Their first meeting was an extremely close war over 3 rounds. Pereira likely edged the first with a big left hand. The second was virtually impossible to score, with both men having success. Adesanya clearly took the third to make it a narrow but justified decision win for Pereira. With momentum on his side, Pereira came out blazing in the immediate rematch before Adesanya hurt him badly in the second, even prompting a miraculous standing 10-count survival. Then, it happened in the 3rd round. Pereira landed a fight-ending knockout blow out of nowhere, like a video game boss. Number 5. Joining the MMA was not easy. While beating Israel Adesanya twice in kickboxing and witnessing his subsequent UFC success likely provided some motivation, Pereira's interest in MMA actually predated Adesanya's rise to stardom. In an interview with the MMA Roasted podcast, Pereira mentioned being hyper-focused on kickboxing early on, but eventually reaching a point where he wanted to fully commit to mixed martial arts. The driving factors were ones any combat sports athlete can relate to, primarily the increased financial opportunities in MMA compared to kickboxing's relatively scarce paydays. As he bluntly put it, the rare big money kickboxing purses still pale in comparison to what top UFC fighters can earn. It was a familiar parallel to the endless debates about MMA versus boxing pay. Pereira also noted the obvious ease of a weight class transition from 187 pounds in kickboxing to 185 in MMA. This decision to try his hand at MMA came before linking up with his now renowned coach, Glover Kickboxing. So, for his first foray into the sport, Pereira didn't have the elite coaching pedigree and name value he's since acquired. But he felt ready to take that leap of faith and put his elite striking talents to the test inside the MMA cage. Number 4. Lost his first MMA fight. Pereira's MMA debut is a prime example that the result on paper doesn't always tell the full story. While it went down as a submission loss, he showcased impressive well-roundedness rarely seen from an elite striker's first MMA foray. Fighting at Jungle Fight 82 in October 2015, over a year before his first kickboxing match with Adesanya and 3 years before Adesanya's UFC debut, Pereira took on Jiu-Jitsu black belt Quimel Otoni. Otoni was no pushover, currently riding a 5-fight win streak as the Jungle Fight welterweight champion. Yet, Pereira shockingly looked comfortable grappling, nearly securing an armbar in his first round and frequently looking for submissions himself. He even escaped a tight body lock attempt. In the second round, Pereira almost finished Otoni on the feet before fatigue got up in the third, leading to a rear naked choke finish for his opponent. Number 3. His amazing and unique training regime. To become a champion like Alex Pereira requires an extraordinary level of dedication and unrelenting training regime. His unique training style has been instrumental in his success in kickboxing and martial arts competitions, though he was submitted in his MMA debut. While audiences have witnessed Pereira's exceptional skills, his looping punches, fabulous head movements, and devastating knees, the key factor behind his great abilities is his rigorous workout schedule. Pereira understood that winning at the highest level necessitates training the body rigorously to gain agility, strength, and flexibility. Pereira's workout was nothing short of intense. He would practice kickboxing drills and perform various strength and conditioning exercises for extended durations. The kickboxing star was known to put in 2 to 3 hours of tough training sessions without ever skipping a day. You can't say Pereira isn't trying everything in his pursuit of UFC gold. He even used a hoverboard while sparring in the lead up to UFC 281. Number 2. The Double Champion. Alex Pereira's relentless pursuit of greatness didn't stop at becoming a world champion. He had his sights set on making history as the first fighter to hold 2 Glory titles simultaneously. Pereira first captured the Glory middleweight title with a unanimous decision victory over Simon Marcus at Glory 46. He then successfully defended his middleweight crown 4 times, cementing his status as one of the best 185-pounders in the world. However, Pereira was far from satisfied with just being the middleweight king. With an unstoppable momentum, the Brazilian was on a hot streak, winning his last few fights with flying colors. His remarkable run culminated in a shot at the Glory Lightweight Heavyweight Championship against Tonegi Abena and Glory 68. In a performance that would etch his name into the annals of kickboxing history, Pereira knocked out Abena to become the first double champion in Glory's illustrious history. He had conquered not 1, but 2 elite weight classes, a feat that had never been accomplished before. Number 1. Kickboxing runs in the family. The Pereira name carries a legacy of combat excellence, and it's a mantle shared by more than just Alex. His sister, a formidable fighter in her own right, has carved out an impressive path in the super bantamweight division of kickboxing. With 6 wins from 8 professional fights, it's evident that the fighting guts run deep in their genes. The Pereira siblings are more than just talented athletes. They're part of a family dynasty forged in the fires of dedication and determination. Alex's sister achievements in the ring are a testament to the unwavering spirit that courses through their veins. Just as her brother has rewritten the record books, she has too left an indelible mark on the sport, etching her name among the best fighters in her weight class.